I find his lack of balance disturbing.
It's all that data, bro. With SLT mega deals, he's got double data for the next 2 months.
Making headlines at first at 9. Birth of Christ. Christmas dawns as the world looks for renewed hope.
And to respect every single child that is born among us. And it calls upon us human beings not to engage in activities that are contrary to life, not to go after the culture of death.
Brutality on a day of piety. 4 persons gunned down in cold blood at the Kudavela fisheries harbour. No end in sight. The northern province continues to be battered by heavy rains. Over 23,000 families affected. Dengue concerns. The Ministry of Health warns of another outbreak in the Western Province. Wrath of Trump. The Federal Reserve lambasted by the US President as the stock market continues a historic plunge.
මේ උත්සව සමයේ ස්මාර්ට් ඇන්ඩ්‍රොයිඩ් තාක්ෂණයෙන් එන සිංග විස්ටා TV එකක් මිලදී ගන්නා ඔබට හිත පිරෙන්න වාසි රැසක් ඕනෑම සිංග ප්‍රදර්ශනාගාරයකින්.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamike Naik. Now, before we start, we wish you a Merry Christmas to you all. Now, millions around the world are gathered today in unison to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Catholic devotees across the globe celebrated the dawn of Christmas last night with their loved ones and friends. Sri Lanka was no different, and this is how they marked and celebrated the special day.
More than 1 million Sri Lankans who are devotees of the Christian faith, with majority of them being Catholic, celebrated the dawn of Christmas across the country last night. The main Catholic Mass celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ was held at St. Joseph's Church in Payagala under the auspices of Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjan.
අප ස්වාමින් වන ජේසුස්න් වහන්සේගේ වරප්‍රසාදයත් දෙවිපියාණන්ගේ ප්‍රේමයත් සුද්ධාත්මයන්ගේ ජීවදානයත් ඔබ සියල්ලන් සමග පවතිවා.
In his Christmas message to the nation, Archbishop of Colombo highlighted the importance of valuing life.
Christmas symbolizes the birth of Jesus Christ in Bethlehem. Human life has been enhanced and glorified by this birth. Therefore, every human person is a great treasure of God. And thus, we are called upon by the very fact of this birth to respect life and to respect every single child that is born among us. And it calls upon us human beings not to engage in activities that are contrary to life, not to go after the culture of death. My attention is drawn to the phenomenon that is increasing in Sri Lanka of a tendency to take parts of a human body which is still in a state of vegetation. When a person has entered coma or is brain dead, there is a tendency to remove body parts from him or her and to place this in other people's body. We are not against that. That is a good thing. Making a market out of it is sinful and is not acceptable. I would like to recommend that you support the Little Hearts project of the Lady Ridgeway Hospital, which is in need of a 10th-floor building in order to house a more modern theatre in order to do operations for the little children. Dear brothers and sisters, wish you all a very happy and holy Christmas with a special attention to your children, because Christmas speaks about a child's birth. Please show love and care for your children. God bless you.
Both Sinhalese and Tamil Christian communities came together with their friends and families to celebrate the birth of their Messiah across the island last night.
දෙසැම්බර් මාසයේ සීතල සුළං අපි மீட்புக்குரிய செயலுமாகும்.
The main Christmas Mass, organized by TV Derana, was held in St. Anthony's Church in Halfsdorf last night. The Mass was conducted by Reverend Father Jude Raj Pereira. Australia was one of the first countries to witness the dawn of Christmas. Hundreds of Catholic devotees attended Christmas Eve Mass in China last night amid security and reported restrictions on Christmas sales and decorations. China has 12 million Catholics who have been split between an underground church swearing loyalty to the Vatican and the state-supervised Catholic Patriotic Association. Meanwhile, Pakistan's tiny Christian community in Karachi also attended their midnight mass on Christmas Eve amid tight security. Devotees passed through security gates and were frisked by police before they were allowed to enter churches. Visitors from all over the world made a Christmas Eve pilgrimage to Bethlehem yesterday, filing past a 16-meter Christmas tree in Manger Square, the town revered as the birthplace of Christ, with the security situation relatively calm. In the meantime, Pope Francis led the world's Roman Catholics into Christmas, urging people in the developed world to seek a simpler, less materialistic life and condemning the yawning gap between the rich and the poor. Solemn service attracted nearly 10,000 people to the St. Peter's Basilica.
Mankind became greedy and voracious. In our day, for many people, life's meaning is found in possessing, in having an excess of material objects. An insatiable greed marks all human history, even today when paradoxically, a few dine luxuriantly while all too many go without the daily bread needed to survive. Now, in light of Christmas, President Maithripala Sirisena, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa delivered their messages to the nation, marking the special day.
In his Christmas message to Sri Lankans, President Maithripala Sirisena noted that the blessed season comes with the promise of new life, new birth. He quoted Christ's words, saying, helping those who are thriving to enter into the gates of sheer damnation to look back at that narrow entrance to a new, meaningful life. The head of state highlighted how Jesus preached to the world that is full of evil persons attempting to fool others by cunning and shrewd methods, that one will not be able to enter the heavens unless they become innocent like children. The president wished these words filled with kindness to be spread throughout villages and cities. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe noted that the life of Jesus Christ brought about hope and reconciliation to a fragmented world. The Premier also said that this is an opportune time to rid ourselves of divisiveness and bring about a sense of brotherhood and amity among all Sri Lankans, going beyond the barriers of caste, creed and language. Meanwhile, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa in his Christmas message noted how Jesus Christ had continuously highlighted the importance of looking inward to correct mistakes, with each of us being aware of our shortcomings before we begin measuring and judging the shortcomings of those around us. The former president went on to say that there is no better time than Christmas to reflect on these great teachings and to remind ourselves of the importance of being in truth, free from hypocrisy and double-mindedness, so that the true power of love could be our guiding source.
The northern province continues to be battered by heavy deluge, with official data placing the number of people with their livelihoods affected at 73,000. Last few days in particular have been challenging for the northern people, with over 23,000 families feeling the ill effects of the inclement weather. Taking note of the gravity of the situation, the President's Media Division announced that President Maithripala Sirisena has issued instructions to provide compensation and relief to those affected by floods as soon as possible. Our humanitarian initiative, Manusad Derana, too moved to provide relief to those affected and kicked off its campaign to collect relief aid from the members of the general public to be dispatched immediately to the northern province.
Districts of Jaffna, Kilinochchi, Melathiv, Mana and Vavuniya are affected by heavy rainfall which battered the regions over the past few days. The brunt of the inclement weather, however, was felt in the Kilinochchi district, with many low-lying lands, houses and roads still submerged by floods. The Sri Lanka Army was seen working around the clock to restore damaged infrastructure in the area. Meanwhile, a group of officers from the 572 Brigade of the Security Forces headquarters in Kilinochchi conducted a rescue operation to save a group of stranded farmers. Even though many lives were saved, currently 7,850 persons are residing in 24 camps in Kilinochchi district alone.
Many of the people who are housed in these camps depend on donations and relief by the army and the public. I'm thankful to Manusad Derana for being the first to come and report on the situation here.
Other Derana visited a relief camp which is set up in Kandavale Mahavidyalaya in Kilinochchi today. In the meantime, the Disaster Management Centre says that out of the 20,737 persons who are affected in Mullaitivu, 3,365 people currently reside in 13 relief camps in the district. The situation in the north shows no signs of abating, especially with the Department of Meteorology saying that showers or thundershowers will continue in the northern and eastern and north central provinces.
Showers or thundershowers will occur in the northern, eastern and north central provinces. Showers or thundershowers will occur elsewhere over the island, particularly after 2 p.m. Heavy falls of about 100 millimeters can be expected at some places in the central and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Matara district. Fairly heavy falls above 50 millimeters can be expected at some places in the western province and in Jaffna, Mullaitivu, Mana and Galle districts. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the central, Sabaragamuwa and western provinces during the morning. There may be temporary localized strong winds during thundershowers. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by lightning activity.
උතුරු පළාතේ කිලිනොච්චි මුලතිව් ප්‍රදේශවල
Areas of Kilinochchi and Mullaitivu in the northern province are places with some of the highest number of unemployment. Even if the floods recede, I believe that we should continue to provide relief. During the last flood, many Tamil people living in the north extended a helping hand to the people of the south. Therefore, I see this as an opportunity to spread the message of national reconciliation between the north and south by helping each other in a time like this.
Meanwhile, issuing a communique today, the President's Media Division said that a decision has been made to provide compensation between 10,000 to 250,000 rupees to those whose houses have been affected by the inclement weather. Furthermore, compensation of 40,000 rupees will be given to those whose farmlands have been affected by floods. Manusad Derana has come forward to provide relief to those affected by floods in Kilinochchi and Mullaitivu. Despite it being Christmas Day, members of the public have been visiting our headquarters to drop off donations since morning. You too can be part of this initiative by dropping off relief items at Other Derana headquarters located at number 320 TB Jamawata, Colombo 10. If you wish to know more, you can contact us on 078 3838 383.
The Ministry of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine warns that the Western Province is facing the risk of spread of dengue owing to prevalent rains. The ministry urges members of the public to take precautions to prevent mosquitoes from breeding, especially at household surroundings. The threat was levelled, or more like revealed, in a research conducted by the Presidential Task Force on Dengue Prevention together with the National Dengue Control Unit recently.
According to the Epidemiology Unit at the Ministry of Health, a total of 48,669 dengue cases were reported island-wide during this year, and the Colombo district leads the list with 9,654 cases. The Epidemiology Unit data also shows that 5,462 cases were reported from the Gampaha district, while 2,896 cases were reported from the Kalutara district. Meanwhile, Presidential Task Force on Dengue Prevention and the National Dengue Control Unit said that they identified 12,471 dengue mosquito breeding sites after 2-day site supervision in the Western Province recently. Officials further warned that there was a significant increase in dengue cases in the districts of Batiklo, Kandy, Kurunegala, Jaffna and Ratnapura in addition to the Western Province. The epidemiology unit warns that the situation could take a turn for the worse, aided by the current rainy weather pattern, and as such it urges people to keep their surroundings free of mosquito breeding.
We're going to move in for a short commercial break and we'll be back with more news. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, President Donald Trump lashed out at America's central bank as a stock market whose gains he wants to credit for continued a historic plunge. Trump said the Federal Reserve was the only problem of the U.S. economy. Trump's Treasury Secretary, meanwhile, scrambled to calm investors. The Dow Jones fell more than 650 points yesterday and is now on track for its worst December since 1931 during the Great Depression. This morning, Japan's Nikkei was also down by about 5%. President Donald Trump blasted the Federal Reserve yesterday, describing it as the only problem for the U.S. economy as top officials discussed a rout in stock markets caused in part by the president's feud with the central bank. In a tweet that did nothing to ease market concerns about the Fed's cherished independence, Trump laid the blame for economic headwinds firmly at the feet of the central bank. Trump said on Twitter, quote, "The only problem our economy has is the Fed. They don't have a feel for the market. The Fed is like a powerful golfer who can't score because he has no touch. He can't putt." Trump has frequently criticized the Fed's raising of interest rates this year. Stocks fell again at the open yesterday amid concern about slowing economic growth, the government shutdown, and reports that Trump had discussed firing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. The sell-off in U.S. stocks worsened in pre-holiday shortened session yesterday as the U.S. Treasury Secretary to convene a crisis group and other political developments rattled investors and pushed the S&P 500 to the brink of a bear market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 653.1 points to 21,792.27 and is on track for its worst December since 1931 during the Great Depression. The S&P 500 lost 65.32 points to 2,351.3 and the Nasdaq Composite dropped 140.08 points to 6,192.92. The slide on Wall Street also had far-reaching effects as Japan's main stock market index plunged, reflecting traders' worries. The Nikkei closed down 5% today, its worst finish since April 2017. Indexes in Shanghai, Bangkok and Taiwan also fell. Investors have been concerned about President Trump's dispute with the U.S. central bank chief and other government shutdowns. Many financial markets in Asia, Europe and North America are closed today for Christmas. In China, the Shanghai Composite Index fell more than 2% this morning. Now, a business cycle analyst predicts that overall GDP is not expected to be beyond 3% this year. This comes in a backdrop where Sri Lanka's economy grew at an estimated 2.9% during the third quarter of the year, much lower than the central bank expectation of 3.3% for the period of July to September.
Issuing a statement on releasing national accounts estimates for the third quarter of 2018, the Department of Census and Statistics said the agriculture industry, a key component of the economy, grew at a robust 3.3% during the third quarter compared to a contraction a year earlier. Industrial activity too is expected to see positive growth of 1.9% and services sector grew at 3.9% during the period, the highest contribution to provisional figures. However, despite positive sentiments on these sectors, Sri Lanka fell short of its expected GDP growth target of 3.3% for the July to September period, when it estimated that the economy grew at an estimated 2.9% during the third quarter of the year. Speaking to First at 9, business cycle analyst Kennedy Silva said that taking into consideration the stability of the external front, Sri Lanka's GDP is not expected to be beyond 3% this year. The central bank has estimated overall GDP growth for this year at 4.4%, which was revised from initial forecast of 4.5% to 5%.
We don't expect the overall GDP for 2018 to be beyond 3% this year. Now, this 3% of GDP is significantly lower from Sri Lanka's potential GDP, where we've seen historically average around 4.5%. It means that overall Sri Lanka's revenue potential has declined. We have seen this decline take place from 2015 right down to 2018. Therefore, there is a concern about the particular economic model that Sri Lanka has adopted during this period. The decline in GDP also reflects a decline in the overall revenue generation capacity in Sri Lanka, which means that there is lesser amount of the revenue per capita also will be under stress. Therefore, Sri Lanka is in a bit of a tight position when you look at its overall GDP performance. Global economic scenario also is somewhat weak and fragile, and therefore there is contraction expected on the global front that could also filter back into Sri Lanka, curtailing some of its exports into the regions where we are going to see this global contraction take place, particularly in America as well. This year we find that the NPL ratios are also on the rise, and therefore banks will be very cautious in their credit approach going into 2019. All in all, the negatives are fairly significant and needs to be managed well, and therefore the Sri Lankan government needs to be in a position to look at the economy and the economic model and see what needs to be done, particularly to address some of these negative impacts that may pull GDP further lower into 2019.
Earlier this month, the Asian Development Bank warned that the current political situation is clouding Sri Lanka's growth prospects despite being in developing Asia's fastest growing sub-region, South Asia. This comes in a backdrop where in September, the ADB said it had revised down the island's annual economic growth rate to 3.8% from 4.2% this year and 4.5% from 4.8% in 2019, owing to weak investments and exports. In the meantime, the IMF predicts that Sri Lanka's economic growth will rebound to 4% this year from a 16-year low in 2017, but urge more reforms of state-owned enterprises to temper fiscal risks and bolster the nation's defense to external shocks.
Now we're going to bring you one of our headline stories where 4 persons were in fact gunned down in cold blood at the fisheries harbour of Kudavela in Tangol today. Another 7 persons were also injured during the incident. As per direct instructions of the Inspector General of Police, Puji Jayasundara, several police teams have launched investigations into the matter. Police suspect the murders to be a contract put out on the lives of the victims as part of a dispute.
At 7:15 this morning, 2 shooters had arrived at the fisheries harbour of Kudavela in Tangol on motorcycle. Their target had been a group of fishermen at the harbour.
මම මෙතන මගේ ළඟ තියෙන වේපන් එකේ මෙච්චර දිග නෑ වේපන් එක වෙනින් භාගයක් විතර ඇති. එක්කෙනා මෙතෙන් ආවේ. මෙතන 4-5 දිනකද වැටුණා. වැටුණාට පස්සේ මෙතන හිටපු කටේ වටේට වෙඩි තියන කල්පේ ඊට පස්සේ මම පැනලා දිව්වා. මට දුවන්නේ කියන්නේ මගේ ළඟ තියෙන වෙඩි තුනේ.
Several people injured by the incident were immediately admitted to the base hospital in Tangol and the government hospital in Nakalugamua. Reportedly, 4 persons who were residents of Nakalugamua later succumbed to their injuries. Police say that a T-56 assault rifle and a pistol had been used by the suspects. It's been reported that father of one of the deceased fishmonger at the harbour who had brawled with a group of fishermen recently. Police suspect this shooting is the result of a contract put out following the recent dispute between the 2 parties. IGP Puji Jayasundara had given instructions to conduct investigations into the incident under direct supervision of senior DIG in charge of the southern province and the DIG in charge of Tangol. The IGP had also instructed the deployment of a police team from the Colombo Crimes Division, which will be headed by an assistant superintendent of police.
ඒ අනුව මේ වන විටත් විවිධ පැතිකඩ
We will conduct a comprehensive investigation into the matter. We hope to get the relevant telephone conversations and CCTV footage. 11 teams have been deployed to look into the incident from different areas.
Incidents of homicides such as this have become the bane of society all across the world. The global homicide rate rose for the first time in more than a decade in 2016, with an estimated 385,000 people being killed. A report released by the independent research project Small Arms Survey revealed Syria, El Salvador, Venezuela, Honduras and Afghanistan to have the highest violent death rates in 2016. Although Sri Lanka does not have a high violent death rate as most countries, 3 out of every 100,000 Sri Lankans are killed in incidents of international homicides. Global study on homicide conducted by the UN Office on Drugs and Crimes in 2013 shows that 84.8% of men and 15.2% of women become victims of such incidents. However, the report by Small Arms Survey commended Sri Lanka as the top performer in homicide rate reductions between the period 2004 to 2016. The report said that as a country that recently emerged from armed conflict, Sri Lanka was able to profit most immediately with a 33% of homicide rate reduction per year. In a backdrop where our country is commended for its efforts to reduce the rate of violent deaths, much still needs to be done when shooting incidents such as the one we reported in Tangor today occur every other week. Ripple effects of intentional homicide is found to go far beyond the initial loss of human life. Lethal violence can create a climate of fear and uncertainty, while victims, the family and community of the victims are considered secondary victims. When justice is not served, impunity can lead to further victimization in the form of denial of the basic human rights to justice.
Moving on to news from overseas, that the death toll following the tsunami caused by the Anak Krakatau volcano in Indonesia has risen to at least 429. On Saturday, giant waves crashed into the coastal towns on the islands of Sumatra and Java. It is thought that volcanic activities set off Indonesian landslides, which in turn generated the killer wave. An expert, however, believes the collapse of an offshore volcano might have caused the deadly waves. A geologist has speculated that the collapse of an offshore volcano might have caused the deadly tsunami in Indonesia, as details about the sequence of events leading up to the tsunami are still emerging. The death toll from the disaster, which hit the Banten province on Saturday, has risen to 429 people. The Disaster Mitigation Agency says some 150 people are still missing, while over 16,000 people are displaced. Dougal Jaram, a British geologist and earth scientist, explained what makes this particular tsunami unusual and the possibilities and difficulties of creating an early warning system in a live stream with China Global Television Network.
We're used to thinking about tsunamis associated with large earthquakes. So you have a big movement between the plates in the earth, a big earthquake, and that shifts, displaces large amounts of water and causes tsunamis. This one, however, has been caused possibly by the collapse of the volcanic edifice. Well, some systems do exist. For example, around the volcano in Stromboli in Italy, they have a wave buoy system, which when it receives unusual waves, tsunami-type waves, it alerts the local villages. And the problem we have is that it won't give people that much of a warning, but in any situation, even a few tens of seconds warning might get some people to higher ground and might reduce the fatalities.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. Now, the second and last test match between England, or New Zealand rather, and Sri Lanka gets underway in Christchurch tomorrow. Both teams have it all to play for, as both sides drew the first match in what was largely a flat pitch. The match will start at 3:30 in the morning Sri Lankan time, and batsman Niroshan Dickwella gave his take on what could be expected.
I think it's going to be a grass wicket here. Our batters, Angelo Matthews, is in a really good form at the moment, and Kusal Menlis is doing a great job. And I know Demoth and the others will chip in as well. Then bowlers will do the job, and they know what areas to bowl at. And not like in subcontinent, we have to bowl fuller here. So they are working on that. They'll do a good job. When I go to the middle, I have to play for the situation and understand the situation and do what I can do the most and to help the team to get a better score.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. But before we go, we're going to bring you our special Christmas segment, Message of Hope. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Dear audience and spectators, as the representative of the Holy Father Pope Francis, I am pleased to deliver a Christmas message over the Derana TV. At Christmas, we celebrate the birth of Jesus, which took place 2,000 years ago. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem, the angels sang to the shepherds, "Glory to God on high, peace to people on earth whom God loves." Christmas, therefore, is a time to rejoice and a special season to spread the message of peace. His birth brings us joy, renews hope. Jesus expressed mercy and compassion. The angel appearing to the shepherds says, "I bring you good news that causes great joy for all the people." What is this good news? It is the presence of God with us. The joy of this good news is to know that God loves all of us. Accordingly, Jesus was born to redeem the fallen world. Therefore, his birth brought hope to the world. Every human heart entertains hope. It is a sign of always looking forward to something positive. This yearning for hope can only be felt by God. This should help us to go ahead with hope in the midst of the struggles of life. The feeling of hope gives us strength to return good for evil. It is an invitation for all of us to look at the future with patience and work together for lasting peace in our country. This needs reconciliation among everyone at all levels. Before I conclude, I would like to share with you some words which His Holiness Pope Francis addresses in his coming message for the celebration of the 52nd World Day of Peace on the 1st January 2019. Peace is like hope, which the poet Charles Péguy celebrated. It is like a delicate flower struggling to blossom on the stone ground of violence. We know that the thirst for power at any price leads to abuses and injustice. Politics is an essential means of building human community and institutions. But when political life is not seen as a form of service to society as a whole, it can become a means of oppression, marginalization, and even destruction. It is important to pray for this beautiful country, Sri Lanka. I gladly impart the apostolic blessing of the Holy Father Pope Francis on all of you, wishing you all a blessed Christmas. Thank you.